Be live. I'm gonna go in there. You're live.
Hi, everybody. Happy Easter. Happy April. Happy spring. Happy everything. Some people celebrate April Fool's Day. I'm kind of a fool every day, so it's just another day for me. I'm really glad you're here. And today we're going to do something more creativity. I'm Clare Cooley. This is the Creativity Show. And we're going to be painting flowers on bunnies while hearing some of my very dramatic life stories from my book, Incandescence, Rising Above Darkness, my memoir that I wrote, as you know, if you've seen these before, because people asked me to, saying my stories help them and they could help others. So I got over my shyness, my instinct for privacy, and shared my real stories. I'm very happy to do it, and it's very fulfilling and deeply gratifying and heartwarming that people have told me it's helped them. I just heard this recently in a TED Talk, which I like to listen to while I'm working. Interesting people interviewed and TED Talks, and that's kind of my way of connecting with the world while being the contemplative that I am and doing a lot of solitude with creativity.
Can I interrupt for a sec?
Sure.
You got a teeny little bit going on with your beautiful jewelry is messing with the microphone a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to hold the microphone.
Or you could put it right in the middle there on your zipper.
How does this work? Does that work?
That looks like it's gonna work.
Okay. So I'm wearing this sweatshirt because I like to wear one of the stenciled outfits that I've done. I did this the last couple days. So we're going to show you a time lapse of me doing this sweatshirt. Then I'm going to use smaller versions of my stencils to paint on the bunnies while we're listening to my pre-recorded audio book. And like I said, it's some dramatic stories. But as another thing I heard in a TED Talk, I didn't finish the first one, which was that the UN did a global study and said that 1 out of every 3 women in this world has been raped or beaten. So at 25, when my dam of silence broke, I decided that I was going to be real and open about what the assaults that I've gone through, because I believe that by talking about things, we can heal ourselves and we can bring it out to the awareness of the world and help heal the world. So I'm open about it. And these next 3 stories have some, well, dramatic, tough stuff in it, but not sexual assault. Those were in on my mother's birthday on the live stream that I read on March 25th, or was pre-recorded. It is my voice reading my stories. So while I'm painting flowers on the bunnies, we're going to be hearing these dramatic stories. And I thought it was very interesting duality. And it also shows what I like to repeat over and over, because I think that I know a few things by this mature age in life. And one of them is what the Dalai Lama mentioned, that in this TED Talk, this person repeated the Dalai Lama saying to some of the monks and nuns that had been imprisoned when China took over Tibet and imprisoned these people. The Dalai Lama said, treat your enemies like jewels, something close to this, because they are the ones that teach you strength and enlightenment, or they help you learn strength and enlightenment. And that is quite a admirable, courageous thing to say that I agree with and aspire to, and am ever working toward not letting other people's pain become mine by forgiving them and detaching from their confusion and pain, their inability to heal themselves, so they pass on the pain. So I think it's an interesting duality, painting flowers on bunnies, which is pretty much an epitome of innocence, while hearing some very heavy stories from my memoir today. And duality is part of life. It's part of everyone's life. It's something I notice. I even, have writing about the duality dance of life. And I do feel like I have always noticed it. And I think that some people are on one side or the other, but life is a combination, dark and light. Yes.
So on YouTube, MMM said, thanks for being open, helps us all. And the Lone 91 said, happy April Fools.
Thank you. Back to the April Fools, and thank you very much for encouraging me to be open. I do think honesty and authenticity is the way for us to heal ourselves, enhance our lives of our loved ones, our connections, our community, the world. What we can talk about, we can work on, we can heal, we can improve. And the blaming, victim shaming, which is why I brought up 1 out of every 3 women has either been raped or beaten in this world, so the UN research says. And so few talk about it, and I do understand why, because I've been open a long time now, and I've heard a lot of really painful stuff from people that I thought cared about me and maybe do care about me, but say very confusing, blaming things. And I understand that in this way and forgive that in this way, that they're too afraid to accept that perfectly good people can have bad things happen to them. People that did nothing wrong, did nothing to bring it on themselves, nothing careless, foolish. But life can be very random, and it's very important for us to be honest and open and accept that victims are innocent. It's the victimizer that holds the responsibility for whatever the hurtful act. And don't be ashamed of what happened to you. Do take responsibility if you've done hurtful things to others, and do your best to make amends for that. But do not be ashamed if it happened to you. And the more honest and open, divulgent we are, the more the world can accept how prolific it is in our sexist world, and the more women can help each other get through it, and good men can be examples to other men. So that's enough of that. Let's wrap this up with something I think is cute and funny, that on April Fool's Day, I had a dear, dear friend that I met here in Duluth in my 20s who said I had an idiot grin, which my son pointed out the other day, because I often see myself smiling so big I don't have any eyes. And He said, well, it's just your whole face is smiling so big. And my friend Arnie Horwitz said, the only persons that he'd seen with the idiot grin that I seem to have were nuns and Buddhist monks in his travels. So I take it as a high compliment that I am a fool and an idiot. And no April Fool's joke. I'm that way all the time. So let us show this sweatshirt being made. I think I have 12 of my stenciled flowers on it. Shall we show that? And then we'll show a little bit of the Easter decor that I have here in the Emerald Lady living room. And then we'll start the stories while I'm painting flowers on bunnies. And
playing for 2 minutes. Your mic is on.
Okay. While we're showing this sweatshirt being made, of course, that's time lapse, so I'm going faster than usual. But I love to do things for the first time, all the time. I love to keep learning and keep exploring and expressing new forms of creativity. So these bunnies, I remembered someone gave me years ago, and I had them in storage, and I remembered them yesterday, so I painted them white. And so I'm going to try stenciling smaller versions of my stencil SVGs onto them, and I haven't done it before, so you're going to see me trying it for the first time, which I like to do because I do think that it's important for us to keep playing and to step into the flow of creativity by trying new things, and we don't have to know how it's going to turn out before we do it. If we enjoy the process, that's a benefit to us. It's happiness increasing to step into the flow. I also heard something in a podcast this morning about playing video games is a way people step into the flow and helps them not worry. And I think that can be very wonderful and sweet for people. But I've always felt like, why not do something that I'm creating something while I'm stepping into the flow? And then I have either a note card or a sweatshirt or some home decor or some writing. When I step into the flow of creativity, I'm also being productive. And though the gaming communities, a few of them become game designers and champions, and it becomes something more productive. I prefer to spend my time making something that can be life enhancing or a gift for others. So there we go. Are you ready let's show a couple Easter shots. Bodie, the movie maker, my son, his YouTube channel is going into the office, so we can show a couple of the tables here in the Emerald Lady living room that I did for Easter. I have to admit, bunnies are kind of my favorite part of Easter. So, and bird. There's the bunnies, and we have eggs in this floral display. And there's the egg collection that all of them are stone or glass eggs in a bed of turquoise and real nests and the cute little chick in the center. So this is a couple of the Easter decor, and I like to just have fun creating and changing the decor. So I'm sure if you've seen the other videos of the all season, any reason tree I have in the center of the house that I change per season. It's the spring tree right now with flowers and feathers. So I like to just play and have fun. expressing my creativity, experimenting, and using the different seasons and holidays as inspiration. So now let us start the bunny painting and the stories, unless there's any comments or questions you want me to address first.
On YouTube, DB Catalyst said, "Good to smile so big."
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, nothing makes me happier than sharing creativity, connecting with others through creative joy. So now we're going to turn this camera on so we can see the painting of the bunnies. And first we'll show, this camera can show these. We cut these smaller SVGs from my stencil designs yesterday, so that the bigger stencils that I worked with for this sweatshirt were too big for the bunnies. So we cut smaller ones, which is the first time we've done that. And the first time I'm going to be trying to stencil onto a surface that really isn't flat. So there's going to be some experimentation going on here, and that's all good. I'm going to start with a big bunny, and I think I'm going to start with this, and I think I'm going to start with gold. We'll see how that goes. So we could see the smaller stencils. Yep. And do you want to show the SVG that came out today? Every live stream, I'm going to be adding a new stencil design for my Patreon members to have access to for no additional fee. The members for $5 a month get any and all of the stencils. Every live stream, a new stencil will come out every Monday and Thursday. And I have close to 300 designs, so they're just going to keep going. This is I believe, is it the 12th flower we have out on Patreon, which you can become a free member of Patreon, and you can buy the stencils each for $4 if you want one, but not all of them, or you can become a member and get all of them for free. Patreon members have no obligation, and you can, no commitment, that's what we say. All right, so let's start with a rose on this bunny, and we're going to move this off the table. And we're going to just go for red. And these cone brushes and acrylic paints, and even these acetates that people that download the SVG scalable vector graphic can get. All the links are in the description, right? All the links to these materials, the cone brush, the acrylic paints, the acetates, even the Cricut cutter, the links are in the description?
Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, all of the materials and tools affiliate links are in the description. And if you're watching on
magnifying glasses, because this this mylar on this white is nearly invisible. Okay, so here's our first try. Maybe we're going to put the rose here because that is kind of the flattest place. Okay, we can start the story.
Seasick soul seeks serenity. He looked like a painting of Jesus with his golden hair landing on his shoulders. His eyes were the color of the sea, his flesh tanned by the sun bouncing off the water. He ate no meat and wore nothing made from animals, including his shoes made from recycled tires. My skin was olive. My nearly black hair had a copper sheen in the sun. My eyes turned from hazel to chestnut with my moods. I made everything I wore by hand with a needle and thread. I did not adorn myself with color, makeup, or jewelry. We were both comfortable in silence. His eyes had a sadness in them ever since seeing war. My eyes stayed alert, knowing how people could be. He worked every day on turning his fishing boat into a sailboat. The boat did not yet have a motor, compass, storm anchor, or radio. He planned to sail to Mexico. He assumed I would come, but had not asked. Often no words were spoken, which was natural for both of us for different reasons. We had both survived dangers by remaining silent. After he had a dispute with the harbor master, despite the fact the boat was not seaworthy, he decided to sail to the next harbor. He calculated we could make it from Dana Point to San Clemente with the light and steady wind coming from the east. I had only sailed from one side of the harbor to the other. This was my first time at sea. I went below for a nap when the wind died down and the ocean was still. I was not familiar with the calm before the storm. When I woke up soaking wet, he was standing in front of me, pushing a wetsuit into my hands. The boat was rocking so wildly I could barely get to my feet. Putting on the wetsuit over my damp body was difficult, but the thought of dying wet, half-dressed, below deck, gave me the energy to pull it on and go up top. I was sure that if my life was going to end, I wanted to at least be up top, feeling the wind and water. As soon as I got to the deck, he demonstrated by straightening his legs against the side of the boat with his back against the tiller, the only way to keep the bow of the boat pointed into the waves. Without a word exchanged, I took on my duty. I understood if the boat turned and the wave hit us sideways, we would capsize and drown. It was obvious that death was a real possibility. I pushed with all my strength against the side of the boat as wave after wave came. I wondered if my legs would give out before the storm did. How long could I keep it up? He tied a rope around the tiller and then around me so I could not be thrown overboard. He moved around the boat, bailing out water and tying things down. The size of the waves was staggering. When we dipped into the trough between the waves, I waited anxiously for the next wall of water to rise above the mast. Each wave could be the one that was going to crush us. But each time the boat would rise, the powerful water would pass under us. I tried to use my arms to give my legs a break. Death seemed inevitable. Which way it would come seemed the only uncertainty. Would a wave crush my tiny body in a moment of unimaginable weight? Perhaps I would survive the impact of being tossed around at sea for a while before swallowing water instead of air. I fantasized about untying myself and trying to swim to shore. I thought at least I would die fighting instead of just waiting for death to come. My urge to jump overboard faded as I realized I could not even guess which direction land was, let alone hope to reach it. After I went through every possible way I could imagine dying, the only thing I was certain of was I wanted to survive. I counted the seconds between my stomach spasms to give myself a focus other than death. For a while, I retched every 14 seconds. Then a rage came up like a sea monster from my own depths. I felt anger at the harbor master for throwing us out before we were seaworthy. Then I felt a rage at him for not telling me before we set sail there was a storm coming. Then the outrage turned toward myself for not asking any questions before putting my life in his hands. I noticed how fear and anger drained me. At 18, there was so much more I wanted to do. I decided staying tied to the tiller was the only chance of surviving. Thinking of death lost its interest, and I resolved to hold the boat steady for however long it took. I hoped that I could survive, and the resolve to do so gave me energy. The only thing I could focus on now was what I would never know or understand if I died. Thoughts of the ineffable captured my undivided attention. I drifted in and out of thinking about what could not be explained. My thoughts that had first raced between fear and hope now moved slowly and powerfully, like the surges under the surface of the stormy sea. I noticed I was keeping the bow pointed into the waves without the tremendous effort it took hours ago. I stopped doubting my strength and ability to endure. A calm came over me. I felt as if I was being watched. I considered my desperate situation might have influenced my ability to be rational. I could not reconcile this in my mind, but this did not concern me. I felt the presence strongly, and somehow I felt safe, and that was enough. Perhaps something mysterious was listening, and it was time to speak. I composed my words carefully. With great deliberation, I decided to take the opportunity to make important promises. I knew if I did survive, I would have to keep them. Being careful to promise only what I could honor. I promised to recommit to the choices I made as a child, to be kind, honest, and awake. I promised to try not to take anyone for granted and to appreciate everyone and everything. Last, I promised to be brave and true to myself as the captain of my own life. The waves were hypnotic. After I made each promise, I stared into the rising water thoughtlessly. My survival was clearly out of my hands, which was oddly comforting. Nothing bothered me anymore. Not my stomach spasms, not even the idea of death. I had surrendered. He was scurrying around the boat, bailing out water. He never stopped. I never moved. I had no way of measuring time passing. Was it minutes, hours, or days? I said nothing. He said nothing. I noticed the waves decreasing in size and frequency. Neither of us celebrated. I realized I had not noticed him during the storm. This seemed strange, since the boat was 38 feet long. When the sea settled down to nearly normal, he put up the sails, but the boat just turned in circles. The pressure of the waves had broken the cotter pin in the tiller, so it just spun in circles under the water. This made me laugh. He was not amused. He made smoke signals in a flat pan by burning paper in it to signal for help. We drifted for hours. I could see land in the distance. I had never found it so lovely before. Finally, a small motorboat with 2 men came up beside us. They tied the boats together side by side and powered into the next harbor with the tiny flat-bottom boat, the only one steering. I heard them talking about how the waves break right at the entrance of the San Clemente harbor after storms. The men smoked a bowl of hashish. The smoke from their pipe blew across my face. I felt elated and did not know if it was the smoke or that I was alive. The men discussed one tiny miscalculation and both boats could crash against the jetty surrounding the harbor. This did not frighten me, and as we entered the harbor, I went to the front of the boat and held on to the jib line like I was riding a Brahma bull and gave out a loud, uncharacteristic yell. When we were safe, I thanked him, our rescuers, the boat, the sea, and the mysterious forces for our safe return. I knew I had to keep my promises and say goodbye. My seasick soul had to search for serenity somewhere else.
Okay. Well, what an interesting duality to be trying these flowers on these bunnies while hearing the story of I was just 18 when that happened. And it was an opportunity. What I remember the most about it was the affirmations, the promises I made to whatever in the universe. I like to think of the divine as love. And even if there isn't a divine in the universe, which I believe there must be, how did we become conscious? How did we become alive? How is it we can love? But love is the stuff that gives life its deepest meaning. So that is what I believe the divine is. And so that's what stands out in that story for me, is the promises, the opportunity to use that very dramatic. Nothing brings the preciousness of life closer than the possibility of death, I'd say. So there we go. Did you
show some of those bunnies to this camera here?
Okay. Well, here's a rose that worked out,
And then we'll get to those comments in a second, guys.
and here's an iris.
All right, I'll read those comments while you're.
And here's some orchids. Here's some calla lilies.
So on YouTube, we've got DB said beautiful project, and MMM said very cute bunnies. What are they made of?
They are actually paper mache, and they were donated to me years ago. And until yesterday, I didn't have an inspiration of what to do with them. And they were, brown paper mache. So I painted them yesterday, and now I'm decorating them. And I'm having fun. It's challenging on this wobbly surface, but life is full of challenges. And
Joni B said the bunnies are turning out so well.
well, they're starting, and I'm a I'm a recovering perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect, which reminds me of the story when I was 14, and I said that to my mother. I want to be perfect. And she said, well, that's nice, dear. Just enjoy the journey because you'll never get there. No one ever does. So enjoy the journey on the way. So that's what I try to do. I am a recovering perfectionist, accept the imperfections and make it part of the art. That's the challenge. All right, shall we go to the next story? And I'm so glad you're here, Joni, and the rest of you. Um, it's fun to connect this way. That's why I call them virtual visits. Like this little green doesn't, it went a little haywire, but the thing is, I can come back when this is dry and clean it up with white paint. So there's always a way to work with it or refine it. So we'll get there. Okay. Yes.
"21. The Rope Swing and the I Ching." After my mother's home in Southern California, I spent a brief time living on a boat with my first boyfriend. Then my first home was a tent on some undeveloped land in Northern California, leased to Joan Baez for the Institute for the Study of Nonviolence. Many days were spent in blissful solitude, wandering in the woods, laying in the warm grass, and writing poetry. My father lived in Palo Alto down the hill with his new wife and her 11-year-old daughter. On one of his visits, he put up a rope swing in an oak tree close to my tent. I wondered if he was trying to be the father he had not been while I was a child. His motivations were rarely obvious and were most likely not as they appeared. I accepted I might not ever know his real reason for anything. I relied on my instincts for guidance and looked for subtle clues into his true intentions. Sometimes my dreams gave me information that seemed to prepare me for things that had not yet happened. Other times I got warnings around me that I could not explain but were clearly helpful. Then there were times I looked for answers in unlikely places, like when my father went to Southern California and brought back the sailor boyfriend I had left. Neither of them told me they were coming. I saw them sitting outside my tent drinking beer. I disappeared into the oak trees without them noticing me. I went to a friend's teepee to contemplate what to do. Why did he bring him without telling me? The I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, was there. Throwing the coins, I consulted the oracle for guidance. Being that I had an older and younger sister, I laughed out loud when the book said, "Father decides marriage for the middle daughter." I went back to my tent and handed them the book, open to my reading, saying, "I hope you two will be very happy together. I have plans of my own." And I walked away. I did not see my sailor ex-boyfriend again until many years later. Out of compassion, I returned to the harbor where I got off his boat after the storm. I hoped enough time had passed so we could be friends. He was still angry and still drinking beer. The choice to be the captain of my own life felt even more correct now than years earlier when I made it. Returning to my tent, I wondered how accurate messages can come from such sources as I sat on the rope swing reading the I Ching.
Well, it's an interesting process to write our own truth and reflect on it. It is a form of self-therapy. It is a way to connect with others in that we all go through, we're all human and we all have experiences and make decisions and go through things difficult and peaceful, painful and peaceful. So it's very connecting. And we are all connected to share our truth. And it's something I'm an advocate of, sharing the truth with others. Our truth is something only we have. Yes.
So on YouTube, we got MMM says, what an epic story. And then Joni B says, Mike says hi, and he really liked the C story.
He likes which story?
The C story, Seasick Souls.
Thank you, Joni, and thank you, Mike. That makes me very happy. I feel like there is so much we have in common that is so much more important than our differences, including between men and women. We're all just people. Well, not just. We all get to be people, which is an extraordinary gift, responsibility, and opportunity. And I think the differences and all the gender identification and is well, I don't know how helpful it is. I had a boyfriend who said I look like a woman and I think like a man, and I thought, what a bizarre thing to say. What do men think like? And I think what he meant was I speak up. I say what I feel. I don't wait for permission to do that. And I have also, worked on the boats with stevedores and painted houses and planted trees with a group of men. I've done all kinds of work, and some of it most people think of men doing. But, we can do anything we choose, except for men can't have babies. Other than that, pretty much whatever we want to do, we get to do. Did you ring again?
No.
All right, let's go for the next story and keep painting bunnies. The duality of such innocence, and this next story is got some heaviness in it. Okay.
Ready when you are.
All righty.
22. Muffins and Magic. Marisha considered flirting an art form. She wanted to teach me the basics, even though, as she put it, you are not likely to ever get it. Taking it upon herself, Marisha decided to show me how to get guys, even though I wasn't interested in learning to flirt, especially with the guys she selected. Looks appeared to be the only consideration she made, saying unapologetically, I like cute guys. What they had to say did not matter to her. The first time we went out together, I made an attempt to converse with the men she selected for us to flirt with. I failed miserably. She said, you intimidated them with real talk. The next time, I tried to think of something unintimidating to say, which ended up with me editing everything that came into my head. Then she said, you scared them with silence. I tried superficial conversation, but she said it came off as patronizing. It became clear to us both I was not going to succeed at being convincingly superficial enough to flirt successfully. She concluded it was her duty alone to do the flirting, and I should not even try. I was relieved, but not fitting into the prevailing customs made me think of my mother, who did not want me to be different than I was. So I called her, and during the conversation she said, I had a dream you got arrested. She started to tell me the details of the dream, but I cut her off saying, I'm fine, Mom, don't worry. Later that day, Marisha picked me up and we went to the Catalyst Cafe in Santa Cruz. She found some guy she thought was cute while I was writing in my journal. She came over to me saying, "Now don't blow it this time. Come meet his friend." A sense of dread came over me, and I did not want to participate. But she had a kid going to the circus look in her eyes, and I did not want to disappoint her. As she went outside with her latest conquest from her guy safari, she signaled for me to follow. She got in the back seat of a car parked out front and gestured for me to get in the front. I did not want to get in, and as soon as I did, I felt it was the wrong place to be. I could not explain it. It just felt like a mistake. I looked at her giggling in the back seat, trying to get her attention, hoping she would see the discomfort in my eyes. The driver was older and distant. When he started the car without saying a word, I said, "Where are we going?" He answered, "Does it matter?" "Yes." "Why?" he said without looking at me. "It always matters to me where I'm going." "Relax," he said. I thought, even if Marisha is so mad at me that she won't go out with me again, I don't care. I don't like this guy. So I said, "Why don't you just take me back since it is clear we are not going to get along?" "Why are you so uptight?" He sped up and turned down a small street. Terror passed through me while my mind focused on reviewing my options. I had a terrible feeling about the situation. Systematically, I looked over my choices one by one. I could throw open my door and jump, but how could I get my friend out of the back seat when she doesn't even know we are in trouble? Maybe the guy in the back seat is okay. If I ran, maybe I could get help. By this time, we were on a back road in the middle of dark redwoods. Panic started, and I'd noticed I was holding my breath, so I forced myself to take a deep, slow breath and then another. Silently, I asked the universe for help as he pulled over. Immediately after my plea, I saw red lights flash on the ceiling of the car. I could not withhold my glee, and I whispered, "Thank you." The driver gave me an evil look as the police came to his window. The cops smelled the pot they had smoked earlier. He asked to see in the trunk. They found something they took to their squad car. I said to the driver, "You're going to tell them we just met and we have nothing to do with whatever they found in your trunk." He turned his head slowly and looked at me with icy eyes. His mouth was twisted in a sneer. He made one snorting sound that never turned into a word. We were all taken to jail. When I was given my one phone call, I called my mother. And as soon as I said hello, she said, "Oh, you're in jail, dear." A few hours later, Marisha started to panic. For the first time in her life, she could not leave when she wanted to. I was also feeling claustrophobic, so I stuck my fingertips through the open window, through the small metal bars, and started saying in a tiny voice, "I'm free, I'm free." It made Marisha and the prostitute in our cell laugh, and we all calmed down. When they brought us dinner, the prostitute noticed I did not eat and said, "You've got to eat." I answered, "I don't eat anything I can't recognize." She banged on the cell bars and yelled, "Bring this girl something to eat she can recognize." They brought me an apple, and I ate it. The next morning, before we were taken to court, Marisha and I were each given a one-size-fits-all tent dress. My dress was torn all the way down the left side. I held it together with my right hand because the officer who took us to court handcuffed my left hand to Marisha's right hand. Maybe she only had one pair of handcuffs, or she thought we would run. When my name was called in court and I was told to approach the bench, nervously I stood up quickly and immediately pulled Marisha out of her seat. She tripped and fell, jerking me forward and forcing me to catch myself with my right hand, which had been holding my torn dress together. When it opened, I was exposed to the courtroom full of people. Everyone but Marisha and I laughed. Even the judge could not contain his smile at our slapstick first court appearance. By the time I got to the bench towing Marisha behind me, the entire room was in a better mood, except me. I was so embarrassed that I did not remember what the judge and my court-appointed attorney said before we were released without bail and ordered to return on the date set for our hearing. We were taken back to jail, given our clothes, and set free. When we returned for our hearing, the driver still did not mention he had just met us, and we had nothing to do with what was in his trunk. The guy in the back seat had been released on bail and did not show up for the hearing. We heard he fled the country. We were ordered to return in 2 weeks for the next hearing. At the next hearing, the driver still did not tell them we did not know each other or have anything to do with the drugs in his trunk. A friend of mine who worked at the cafe where we met the driver told me that the driver came in every morning at 11 a.m. and had a bran muffin and milk. My friend overheard him saying that I was a witch who had done a spell that brought the police. I called Marisha and said, "I will be picking you up tomorrow morning. We're going to talk to the driver while he is at the cafe." She sounded terrified. "What are you going to do?" "I'm just going to talk to him." "What am I supposed to do?" "Just sit down next to him and do not take your eyes off him and say absolutely nothing." So at 11:05, we looked through the back door and saw him sitting facing the windows. I instructed the trembling Marisha, "Just sit in the empty chair on his right. Don't say a word even if he talks to you, and don't take your eyes off him. When I get up, you get up, and we leave." "I don't know." She was so scared. I got impatient with her and said, "You got us into this. Now I'm going to get us out of it. It's no big deal. I'm just going to talk to him, walk in, sit down, stare at him, get up when I do, and leave with me. Got it?" Reluctantly, she said, "Okay." "Good. Now take some big breaths and follow me." We walked up from behind him, and I took the chair opposite him. At the same moment, she sat down beside him. He was just about to bite into his bran muffin, which he put back on his plate. I looked at him for a few long, silent seconds before I said, with precise enunciation, "It is time to tell the truth." He started to get that twisted half grin, half scowl he had when I asked him to take us back to the cafe the night we met. It appeared as if he was preparing to say something but couldn't figure out what, so I repeated, "It is time to tell the truth." "Why should I?" he asked, with his sardonic grin beginning to surface. I spoke clearly and a bit louder. "You know how bad your life got when we met? It could be worse." He crumbled his bran muffin in his hands. "All you have to do is tell the truth." I stood up calmly, pushed in my chair, and Marisha followed me out. The next day, our lawyer called and said, "All charges have been dropped against you both."
Okay. Well, yeah, I think so. Is my mic back on? Okay. Well, that story, I've taken a big break between the time I wrote and published these stories, and now hearing them again. And I recorded it back then, so hearing it with this time break, this objectivity break, is very enlightening. And it does, this last story especially, the truth is very powerful. And that's why one of the many reasons I believe in it. Yes.
On YouTube, great how you can have humor in even difficult situations. Love the story, says the LG91.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, humor is a way we can get through some of the heaviest stuff. And it can definitely help us. And it is something that connects us because everyone likes to laugh, and everyone likes to find the lightness, especially in heavy things. So I do my best. As I shared on my live stream on New Year's Day, when people say things that hurt my feelings, I put it in the WTF file, which stands for what the fuck. And then I assign myself the task of taking it out of the WTF what the fuck and putting it in the WTF file, transforming it into, well, that's funny, so that the hurtful things then become humorous. And I'll give one example. The woman who said I should cut off all this dead stuff because I've just let my hair grow. I've done that pretty much all my life. And instead of snapping back, I just left her vicinity at this social gathering. And later I came up with, well, you know, since our hair comes out dead, once it emerges from our hair follicles, it's dead technically. So should we all just shave? So, but I try not to snap back at the time, even though sometimes I come up with some good ones in the moment. It's not, I don't want mean, jealous, fear-based, controlling people to prevail, yes, and make me unhappy. And so I don't snap back even if I got something in the moment, because that's kind of like letting them have that negative effect on me and go there. So I pride myself in staying graceful as long as possible. So are there other comments? And what's our time? Let's hear those, and then
Joni B said, very entertaining story. Love that your mother could sense what happened.
Thank you, Joni. And not only did she sense it, she knew before it happened that it was going to happen. And so when I called, her first words were, you know, you're in jail, aren't you, dear? But we had that connection somehow. I cannot explain it, nor do I need to, or do I try, how, you know, I had a dream before she passed that portended her death. I had one of my father's and my dear mentor, Walter Landor, and my older sister's death. So I don't understand how this can happen, but my theory, and of course I have nothing scientific that can back it up, it's just instincts, and that there's a place in the universe where time does not go on a linear. We've just decided to define time the way we do so that we can end up in the same place at the same time, or make it to the airline takeoff time or whatever. But truly time, as we know, the faster you go in the universe, the slower time passes. So I think there's a place where maybe time is more like a Mobius strip than a straight line, and there's a place where the past and the future and the present all intersect. And I think the dream time, and sometimes in deep creative flow, deep meditation, I experience that crossing over place, and things that have not yet happened I seem to see, and things that happened long ago seem totally present. And I think we all experience this, but some of us are more open to letting it in. So that's my theory on time, in case anybody wanted to know. Okay. Any other comments before we wrap up? All right. Well, I'm going to continue working on the bunnies, and maybe on Thursday's live stream, you'll see some bunnies with blooms all over them. We'll see where I take this. And I'm really happy you were here, and I hope you're having a great day and enjoying this gorgeous weather and whatever you celebrate and whoever you celebrate it with. I hope it's joyous. And meanwhile, come back on Thursday at noon, tell a friend, like, subscribe, comment, all those good things, and stay creative.